I think it's safe to say that Resident Evil Requiem has exceeded everybody's expectations. People knew it was going to be a big deal when the trailers were being shown and we saw gameplay footage and all that other stuff. Um, a lot of people are still polarized about Grace Ashcroft as a character for the most part. Some people, criticize, I guess, like the acting and I guess the way she kind of like hyperventilates and stuff like that throughout the entire well, not throughout the entire game, but like she hyperventilates and she stutters a lot and she's supposed to be like an FBI agent and I guess like I don't know. I guess it's an unnecessary element of her character that kind of feels out of place in the game. But I don't know. That's just what some people say. Some people think that she's an okay character because she's not bland, she's not boring, and I honestly feel like her flaws would have been magnified more if Leon was not in this game. And I think that's one of the few good things about Resident Evil Requiem is that it features dual protagonists, and um, and I don't know because like I feel like it takes gamers a while to like warm up to new characters and all that stuff. And the same thing could be said with like Ethan Winters from Resident Evil 7 and 8. He's okay, but at the same time, he's not placed on the same level as Leon and Chris Redfield and or even Joe Valentine, who, Capcom ruined a long time ago. Um, despite its flaws, Resident Evil Requiem has managed to sell like 7 million units like since its release, and it hasn't even been a year yet. That's the crazy thing, and it's one of the hottest survival horror games of this year, and yeah, it's just the amount of like copies the game was selling within a very short period of time. I heard that it sold like 6 million in like 2 weeks, and I think the director of the game had confirmed that the story is supposed to be having like DLC and expansion. So we're not done yet in relation to content for Resident Evil 9, and we're supposed to be getting Resident Evil Veronica sometime next year, and that's going to be available on just about every like current generation game system like the PS5, Switch 2, Xbox Series X. And yeah, I honestly feel like Resident Evil for the most part is seeing a resurgence in terms of popularity because you look at like the older entries of Resident Evil, people love the first four games, and after Resident Evil 4, it kind of seems like everything kind of went off a cliff. Like Resident Evil 5 was solid, but there was controversy attached to that. And then Resident Evil 6 was horrible. 7 arguably saved the series, but I feel like with like 7 and 8, like I don't know, people kind of soured on the IP overall because despite the fact that those two games were successful, it felt like Resident Evil was becoming a shell of what it used to be. And I just feel like the new characters that Capcom try to use for like Resident Evil games. I don't know. They don't connect with They don't connect with like people like the older games did. And you look at like some of the best selling entries in the series. It's basically remakes of the older Resident Evil games, whether it be 2 or 4. A lot of people feel like Resident Evil had like reached its peak a while back, and I feel like at this point Capcom is just they're just remaking the older games for like fan service purposes because they know like how much people love the older stuff and nostalgia sells pretty well, especially in this day and age. But yeah, I honestly feel like the rest of this year is going to be big for Resident Evil, along with next year as well. And yeah, I could definitely say that this game and its success definitely exceeded my expectations because it seemed like within the past couple of years, the standard of expected sales for a new game is like 3 or 4 mil or something like that. It doing 7 mil and hasn't even been a year yet. It's quite impressive, and it makes me wonder how much of an attraction Resident Evil Veronica still is because I honestly feel like the remake has the potential to do better than this game because, like I said, everybody likes the older stuff a lot better. And and I don't know. I mean, I feel like Capcom's definitely going to end up remaking more Resident Evil games in the future. I'm just not exactly sure what they're going after. I heard rumors that they're most likely going to skip Resident Evil 5. I don't know how they would remake Resident Evil 6 and make it, marketable or something that people would want to play because a lot of people said that that game was really bad, just the way it looked. And I don't know. It's something that they want to forget. So I do feel like Capcom is running out of older Resident Evil games to remake. There's a Resident Evil game from 2002, Resident Evil Zero, that they could possibly remake, but a lot of people go on record and say that that was one of the worst entries in the series, depending on who you ask. So, it really makes me wonder, like, what else is next for the Resident Evil series because it's still profitable, but at one point, Capcom had almost given up on the IP because they almost I read somewhere that they almost like sold it to Microsoft like back in 2020 because there was a lot of uncertainty with the pandemic and stuff like that. And thankfully they did not do that, but it really makes me wonder like what's next for the Resident Evil franchise after they're done remaking some of the older games that people loved.